Welcome to Monk's Temple. Close your eyes for just a moment. Not to sleep, but to see. Feel the weight of your own thoughts. The constant hum of worry, the sticky residue of yesterday's regret, the tight grip of trying to force the world into a shape that pleases you. We often think of strength as something external, muscle, willpower, gritting our teeth. But what if the deepest strength, the most unshakable kind, is not about adding more, but about understanding what we already have? What if the very habits we think are helping us cope are, in truth, the threads weaving a cage around our minds? For centuries, the profound insights of Buddhism have served not as a religion for many, but as a mirror, a psychology of the mind. It maps the terrain of our inner world with startling clarity, showing us where we get stuck, where we suffer needlessly, and most importantly, the path to liberation. That liberation isn't to a distant heaven, but to a resilient, peaceful, and powerfully present state of mind, right here, right now. Today, we embark on a deep, quiet exploration. We will journey through 10 common habits, not of action, but of mind, that silently drain our mental strength. For each, we will not just diagnose the wound, but apply the timeless medicine of the Buddha's teachings. We will weave together psychological understanding, ancient wisdom, and stories from the path of life itself. Our aim is not to add another list of rules to your life, but to help you see with new eyes, to loosen the knots from within. This is a long, contemplative journey, a space for true understanding to settle. Make yourself comfortable. Let your breath find its natural rhythm. And as we begin, if these words resonate with you, if you feel this is a space of insight you wish to return to, consider subscribing to Monk's Temple. It is your gesture, a turning of a key, that allows us to keep these lamps of understanding lit. Thank you. Now, let us begin not at the beginning, but at a place where many of our struggles converge, the heavy, invisible burden we carry for others. Imagine your mind is a clear, still pond. This pond has its own natural ecosystem, its own reflections of the sky and trees above. Now, imagine every opinion offered to you, the criticism, the praise, the unsolicited advice, the gossip, is a stone thrown into your pond. Plunk. 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 Each stone creates ripples, distorting the surface, stirring up mud from the bottom. Your once clear water is now a chaotic mess of intersecting waves, reacting to every external impact. This is the mind ruled by the opinions of others. It has no stillness of its own. Its clarity is forever at the mercy of the next thrown stone. Buddhism offers a profound concept for this, equanimity. Upekkha in Pali. It is not indifference. It is not coldness. Think of equanimity as the depth of the ocean, not the surface of the pond. Storms may rage on the surface, winds may whip the waves, but 20 fathoms down, there is a profound calm, a stability untouched by the weather above. The ocean does not get angry at the storm, nor does it cling to the sunshine. It contains both, with depth. Equanimity is the practice of cultivating that inner depth, so that the stones of opinion sink through and come to rest, without permanently muddying our waters. We tie our self-worth to these external ripples because we have forgotten how to see our own reflection in the deep, still water beneath. We hand the mirror of our identity to everyone we meet and then despair at the fractured, contradictory images they send back. "You're too loud," says one. "You're too quiet," says another. And we spin, trying to be both, ending up as neither, exhausting ourselves in a performance with no defined audience. Let me share a story. There was a young potter, Ilara, renowned in her village for her exquisite, delicate vases. They were so thin, so luminous, they seemed to hold light itself. A nobleman from a distant city visited and commissioned a set. "Make them strong," he commanded. "I want to see power, not fragility." Ilara, wanting to please, began to thicken the clay. Her next patron was a poet. "I want to see the vulnerability of existence in your work," he mused. So she tried to make them even thinner, more fraught. A merchant then asked for practicality, a priest for symbolic complexity. Years passed. Ilara's studio was filled with heavy, awkward, confused vessels. She had forgotten the feel of the clay that once sang beneath her own fingers. One day, alone and frustrated, she took a lump of clay and closed her eyes. She stopped thinking of nobles, poets, merchants, or priests. She simply remembered the joy of the wheel spinning, the cool slip against her skin. She made a simple bowl. It was not too thick, nor too thin. It was just itself. And in that bowl, she saw her own reflection for the first time in years. That bowl was equanimity. It was not made for an audience, it was an expression of the potter's authentic presence. When you act from that deep, authentic place, the opinions of others become like weather on a mountain, it passes. The mountain remains. How do we cultivate this depth? We start with mindfulness, the gentle, non-judgmental awareness of our own mind. The next time a comment lands, a criticism stings, pause. Before you react, before you internalize it, become the ocean depth. Observe the ripple of feeling. Ah, that caused a sensation of heat in my chest. That sparked a defensive thought. Just watch it. You are not the ripple. You are the vast space that contains it. This creates a tiny gap, a moment of freedom, where you can choose your response instead of being hijacked by reaction. And we must practice self-love, matri, directed inwardly. This is not vanity. It is the radical act of being your own safe harbor. Each night, instead of scrolling through feeds that show you who you are not, try this: place a hand on your heart. Feel its steady beat, a rhythm that has been yours since before any opinion ever touched you. Whisper, if only in your mind, may I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be kind to myself. You are watering the seeds of your own intrinsic worth. A tree that is deeply rooted in its own soil does not fear the chatter of birds in its branches. When we release the exhausting burden of managing everyone's perceptions, a tremendous energy is freed. That energy becomes the fuel for authenticity, for creativity, for a mental strength that is unshakable because it is sourced from within, not borrowed from the ever-changing world outside. Your pond becomes clear again, reflecting not the faces of others, but the boundless sky of your own true nature. There is a children's game by a stream, where they build elaborate dams with twigs and mud and stones. They work with fierce concentration, blocking this channel, diverting that trickle, determined to command the water's flow. For a glorious, brief moment, it works. Their little pond rises. But water is life, and life is movement. It always finds a way. A trickle becomes a leak, the leak undermines a wall, and with a soft, inevitable sigh, the structure gives way. The child is left, not with control, but with muddy hands and the lesson that the stream was always stronger. Our adult lives are too often this game played with higher stakes. We try to dam the flow of life itself, controlling our schedules, other people's behaviors, outcomes, even our own emotions. We call it responsibility, or diligence. But in its extreme, it is a recipe for exhaustion, frustration, and a deep-seated anxiety that whispers, if I stop pushing, everything will fall apart. Buddhism speaks directly to this suffering with the principle of non-attachment and the wisdom of impermanence, anicca. This is not a call to passivity or neglect. It is not about abandoning the dam-building tools and walking away. It is about recognizing the nature of the stream. The stream will flow. Seasons will change. The tool is not the problem. The illusion that we can create a permanent, static pool in a universe of constant flux is the source of our anguish. Think of it as learning to sail versus trying to command the sea. The controller buys a massive engine, charts a rigid course, and fights every wave and wind that dares to deviate from his plan. He is in a constant battle, burning fuel, straining metal, his joy drowned out by the roar of resistance. The sailor, understanding non-attachment, knows she cannot control the wind or the waves. But she can learn their nature. She can raise and lower her sails, adjust her rudder, and work with the elements. Her journey may not follow the straight line on a map, but it is filled with grace, responsiveness, and a partnership with reality. She arrives not exhausted from the fight, but energized by the dance. We cling to control because we are afraid. Afraid of uncertainty, of failure, of the raw, unbounded potential of a future we did not design. Control is the illusion of safety. But true safety is not found in a fortress, it is found in resilience, in buoyancy, in the trust that you can navigate whatever waters you find yourself in. Let me tell you about Leo, a master architect who designed his life as he would a building. Every 5-year plan was a blueprint, every relationship a contract, every emotion a variable to be managed. His health, his career, his family's path, all were projects under his meticulous supervision. For a time, it was impressive. Then, his daughter decided to pursue art, not engineering. A recession paused his flagship project. He developed a stress-induced condition that no doctor could neatly diagnose or control. His perfect blueprint was being vandalized by life itself. In his despair, he visited an old botanical garden. He saw a centuries-old wisteria vine. It had no blueprint. It had grown over, through, and around an ancient pergola, not fighting the structure but embracing it, creating a cathedral of living wood and purple blossoms more beautiful than any architect could conceive. It was strong not because it controlled its environment, but because it was adaptable, responsive, rooted. Leo sat under that wisteria and wept. He realized he had been trying to be the rigid pergola, demanding life grow according to his plan. What if he could learn to be the vine? The Buddhist practice for this is surrender. Not surrender as defeat, but as intelligent yielding, like a bamboo stalk bending in a typhoon so it does not snap. It is the conscious relaxation of the mental fist. We practice it through mindfulness. When you feel that familiar grip of anxiety, I must make this happen, they must act this way, pause. Breathe into the tightness in your shoulders, your jaw. Ask yourself, what, in this exact moment, is truly within my control? You will find the list is very short: your breath, your attention, your next intention. The rest, other people's choices, traffic, the stock market, the past, is the stream. You can tend your garden on its bank, but you cannot stop its flow. By surrendering the illusion of total control, we paradoxically gain a profound sense of empowerment. We are no longer the frail dictator of a universe that refuses to obey. We become the wise sailor, the adaptable vine. We exchange the burden of playing God for the freedom of being a harmonious, creative part of the whole. Our mental strength is no longer dependent on everything going to plan, but on our unshakable capacity to meet what is with clarity and grace. Imagine your consciousness is a vast, sky-like space. Thoughts pass like clouds. Sensations arise like changes in the weather. Now, imagine an emotion, say, a surge of anger. In a mind untrained, it is as if a single dark cloud suddenly consumes the entire sky. There is no space, no perspective, only storm. Every thought becomes a thunderclap of justification, every memory fuels the lightning. You are not having an emotion, you have become the emotion. You are lost in the weather of your own being. This identification is what Buddhism points to as a primary source of suffering. We are not taught that emotions are intelligent signals, we are taught we are them. I am angry. I am sad. This is a subtle but catastrophic grammatical error. It conflates the temporary weather with the permanent sky. The sky can hold a hurricane and yet remain, fundamentally, sky. Your awareness can hold the most intense rage, grief, or fear, and yet remain, fundamentally, clear, spacious awareness. Emotional intelligence, from a Buddhist perspective, is not about managing or suppressing emotions. It is about developing the capacity to be the sky, not the storm. The practice that trains us in this is, again, mindfulness, sati. But here, we apply it as emotional mindfulness. It is the art of creating inner space. When a strong emotion arises, instead of being sucked into its vortex or frantically pushing it away, we practice a kind of internal stepping back. We name it, with gentle curiosity. Ah, this is anger. It feels like heat, tension, a rushing story in the mind. We observe its physical sensations without buying into its narrative. This is not cold analysis. It is a compassionate hosting. You are allowing the emotion to be, without letting it take over the house. Think of a parent with a tantruming child. The unskillful parent either gets into a screaming match with the child, being ruled by the emotion, or locks the child in a room, suppression. The skillful parent stays calm, holds the space, acknowledges the child's feelings, you are really upset right now, but does not yield to the unreasonable demands. The parent's calm is the container that eventually allows the child's storm to settle. Your mindful awareness is that parent. Your emotion is the child. It needs acknowledgement, not dictatorship. Let's consider the story of Maya, a brilliant lawyer known for her fierce courtroom presence. Her emotions were her fuel, righteous indignation, passionate advocacy. But off the bench, they ruled her. A minor criticism from a partner would trigger days of simmering resentment. Traffic would ignite rage that ruined her evening. She felt like a pinball, bounced from one intense reaction to the next. During a silent meditation retreat, a torture for her, initially, she was given one instruction, to label her emotions as they arose. Planning. Worrying. Impatience. Boredom. At first, it was a cacophony of labels. Then, during a walking period, she stubbed her toe. A bolt of pain and instant fury shot through her. Automatically, her mind whispered, pain. Anger. And something shifted. In that tiny gap between the sensation and the label, she wasn't in the anger. She was observing it. It was a sensation, a cloud in her sky. For the first time, she felt a separation from her emotional tempest. She wasn't the storm, she was the one feeling the wind and rain. That realization was her first taste of true emotional freedom. Buddhism also offers loving-kindness meditation, metta, as a direct antidote to being consumed by difficult emotions. When we are drowning in self-criticism, a form of emotion, sending metta to ourselves, "May I be happy, may I be peaceful," is like throwing a life raft to the drowning part of our psyche. It changes the internal climate from one of warfare to one of hospitality. By practicing emotional mindfulness, we stop letting transient feelings dictate our permanent state of being. We develop resilience. The emotion may be strong, but our awareness is stronger. We learn that we can feel intense anger without acting on it, profound grief without collapsing into it, exhilarating joy without clinging to it. This is the foundation of unshakable mental strength, the unflappable, compassionate sky of your own awareness, capable of holding all weathers without losing its essential, serene nature. The mind has a peculiar gravity, a magnetic pull toward what is already gone. It replays conversations like a scratched record, rehearses alternate outcomes of decisions long since past, and caresses old wounds until they feel fresh. This is dwelling. It is not the same as healthy reflection or learning. Reflection is like visiting a museum. You observe the artifacts of your history with curiosity, learn their lessons, and then you leave, returning to the living city of the present. Dwelling is like setting up a cot in the museum and deciding to live there, dusting the same exhibits every day, whispering to the silent mannequins. It is a haunted house, and you are both the ghost and the haunted. Buddhism identifies this clinging to the past as a direct violation of the fundamental truth of impermanence, anicca. Everything that has happened is gone. The person you were, the people involved, the circumstances, all have flowed down the river of time. To dwell is to try to clutch the river's water in your hands. You end up with nothing but wet, empty palms and a sense of loss. The past is a ghost. The more attention you feed it, the more solid and terrifying it becomes. But why do we do it? Often, it's because we believe that by rehashing the past, we can finally fix it, solve it, or get the justice or apology we feel we deserve. It's a futile attempt to control what is already unchangeable. Other times, it's a form of avoidance. The past, however painful, is known. The present is uncertain, and the future is scary. So we retreat into the familiar pain of yesterday. Imagine your life's journey is a hike through a magnificent forest. Dwelling on the past is like hiking while carrying a heavy, full-sized mirror, constantly turned backward. You are straining under the weight, you keep tripping over roots in the present path because you're not looking, and all you can see is the trail you've already walked, growing smaller and more distorted in the reflection. To walk freely, you must put the mirror down. You must turn your eyes forward to the dappled light on the path ahead, the scent of pine, the sound of the present moment's birdsong. Consider the tale of Henry, a retired teacher. His defining story was one of betrayal from 30 years prior. A colleague took credit for his work, leading to a missed promotion. Henry narrated this story at family dinners, to new acquaintances, in his own mind every night. It was his psychic scar, his identity, Henry, the wronged one. One day, his young grandson asked him to build a model rocket. As Henry fumbled with the tiny parts, his mind drifted to the past, and he snapped at the boy for a simple question. He saw the hurt in the child's eyes, a fresh, present moment pain he himself had just caused by living in an old one. It was a mirror shattering. He realized the colleague hadn't stolen his present, he had been stealing his own presents for 3 decades, handing them over to a ghost. The real betrayal was his own continued allegiance to that ancient hurt. The Buddhist prescription is a combination of mindfulness and forgiveness. Mindfulness is the practice of gently, incessantly, returning to the present. When you catch the mind wandering into the museum of the past, you don't scold it. You kindly notice, remembering, and you guide your attention to an anchor in the now, the feel of your feet on the floor, the sound of ambient noise, the rhythm of your breath. You are training the mind to live where life actually is. Forgiveness is the act of releasing the ghost. It is not saying what happened was okay. It is saying, I will no longer let this event live rent-free in my mind, poisoning my present. It is an act of radical self-interest. You forgive the other person not for them, but for you, to put down the mirror. And crucially, you forgive yourself, for your mistakes, your naivety, your part in the story. Self-compassion is the key that unlocks the museum door. By practicing this, the past transforms. It ceases to be a prison and becomes a library. You can visit to gather wisdom, but you don't have to live there. The mental energy spent on maintaining the haunted house is freed. That energy becomes vitality for today, creativity for tomorrow, and the lightness of being that comes from walking the forest path unburdened, your eyes wide open to the beauty that is here, now, always emerging. The mind is a master storyteller. It narrates our experience from moment to moment. A negative mindset is not just having a sad thought, it is hiring a narrator with a permanently cynical, grating voice to dub over the entire film of your life. This will go wrong. I'm not good enough. Nothing ever works out. The narrator is so convincing, we forget it's just a voice. We mistake its commentary for reality itself. The world begins to conform to its gloomy predictions, because our actions, born of fear and defeatism, make it so. This is the self-fulfilling prophecy of a weak mind. Buddhism approaches this not by demanding forced positivity, which is just another layer of struggle, but through the lens of right view and mindfulness. Right view is the understanding that our thoughts are not facts, they are mental events, conditioned by past experiences, moods, and habits. To see them as such is the first step to freedom. Mindfulness is the practice of turning down the narrator's volume and listening to the actual sensory experience of life, which is often neutral or even beautiful, beneath the layer of negative commentary. Think of your awareness as a movie screen. The sensations, sounds, and sights of life are the light projecting onto it. Your negative thoughts are like graffiti scrawled on the screen itself. You're trying to watch the film of your life, but all you can see are the dark, obstructive scribbles. The Buddhist practice is to learn to see the graffiti as graffiti, not as part of the movie. You notice, there's the scribble of, I'm a failure. And in that noticing, you begin to see the light of the actual movie shining around its edges. With enough practice, the scribbles lose their power to dominate the screen. We cling to negativity because, perversely, it feels safe. Expecting disappointment protects us from the shock of it. Expecting rejection feels like preparation. But it's a false armor. It's like wearing a raincoat every single day because it might rain. You miss the feel of the sun, the breeze, you become sweaty and confined, all for a hypothetical storm. Let me share an original story about Anya, a talented graphic designer. She had a realist mindset, as she called it. She anticipated client rejections, so her proposals were defensive and uninspired. She predicted friends would cancel, so she preemptively pulled back. Her world had shrunk to a small, gray room of confirmed low expectations. On a trip to the coast, she woke before dawn in a foul mood, predicting a cloudy, disappointing sunrise. Grudgingly, she went to the cliff's edge. The sky was indeed overcast. "See," her narrator sneered. But as she stood there, she noticed something. The clouds weren't a solid wall, they were layers of violet and charcoal, moving. Then, a sliver of molten gold appeared on the horizon, not in spite of the clouds, but through them, painting their edges in fire. The sunrise wasn't the clear, postcard perfection she'd expected, it was more complex, more dramatic, more beautiful because of the obstacles. In that moment, her narrator was silent. She saw the world directly. She realized her negative mindset wasn't realism. It was a filter that blocked out all light that didn't fit its dreary narrative. What if her creative block, her relationship struggles, were like those clouds, not permanent endings, but dynamic elements that could lead to a more profound kind of beauty? To cultivate this shift, we practice gratitude and loving kindness. Gratitude is the deliberate rewiring of attention. Each day, find 3 small, concrete things the negative narrator would overlook. The warmth of a cup in your hands, the fact that a traffic light turned green, the functioning of your lungs. This isn't Pollyanna-ish, it's a factual recalibration of your attention to what is also true. Loving kindness meditation, metta, directly softens the heart that has hardened through negativity. By silently wishing well for yourself and others, you generate a mental climate of warmth that melts the frost of cynicism. You start to believe that happiness is not only possible but is your birthright. By challenging the negative narrator, you reclaim your mental space. You move from being a prisoner of a bleak story to being the author of a more compassionate, accurate, and resilient one. The screen is wiped clean, and you can finally see the vivid, unfolding movie of your life in all its complex, often difficult, but fundamentally alive and luminous reality. Complaining is the mental habit of rehearsing powerlessness. It is the act of pointing at the storm and shouting, "Rain," over and over, as if the identification of the problem were a solution. Every complaint is a tiny prayer to the god of frustration, reinforcing the story that we are victims of circumstance. It focuses our energy like a laser on what we dislike, magnetizing us to more of the same, while blinding us to our own agency. It is mental quicksand. The more we struggle in it by complaining, the deeper we sink. Buddhism addresses this with the twin pillars of acceptance and right effort. Acceptance is not resignation. It is not saying, "This rain is wonderful." It is saying, "It is raining." Full stop. It is the clear, non-resistant acknowledgement of reality as it is in this moment. This is the solid ground from which effective action can spring. Right effort is then the wise direction of our energy. Not toward bemoaning the rain, but toward building a shelter, finding an umbrella, or learning to dance in it. It is the shift from, "Why is this happening to me?" to, "What can I do within this?" Imagine you are on a cross-country train. The train will make stops, encounter delays, pass through ugly industrial yards and breathtaking valleys. Complaining is like spending the entire journey standing in the aisle, yelling at the conductor about the schedule, the scenery, the speed. You are on the train, but you are not taking the journey. You are in a self-made hell of protest. Acceptance is sitting down in your seat, looking out the window, and acknowledging, we've stopped. This is a gritty view. Right effort is then using the stop to read a book, strike up a conversation, or simply rest your eyes. You work with the conditions of the ride. We complain because it gives us a fleeting sense of camaraderie in misery and a hit of self-righteousness. It feels like action, but it is action that changes nothing except to deepen our own unhappiness and annoy those around us. Consider the story of a small-town community center. Its roof leaked. For months, the weekly book club meeting was dominated by complaints. The city never funds us. The rain ruined my antique chair. It's always something. The mood was sour, attendance dropped. One evening, an older member, a retired carpenter named Sam, listened to the litany. He stood up, not to complain, but to say, well, the city won't fix it. But I have some tarpaulin in my garage. If a few of you can spare an hour Saturday, we can probably patch it well enough to last the season. A stunned silence fell. Then, hands went up. That Saturday, they patched the roof. They shared laughs, got dirty, and felt a collective pride they hadn't felt in years. The complaint had been the locked door. Sam's acceptance of the reality, the city won't help. And his right effort, let's do what we can, was the key. The book club didn't just get a drier room, it rediscovered its own spirit. The practice here is mindful pause. Before a complaint leaves your lips or even solidifies in your mind, insert a breath. In that space, ask, is this within my control? If yes, move to action, silently, without fanfare. If no, practice a mantra of acceptance. It is what it is for now. This is not passivity. It is the conservation of vital energy. It is choosing not to throw your inner peace onto the pyre of circumstances you cannot change. By replacing the habit of complaint with acceptance and directed effort, you transform from a passive critic of life's movie to an active, creative participant in your own story. You stop wasting your voice describing the prison and start using your hands to feel for the door. Mental strength is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can handle reality, not the noisy protest that reality isn't to your liking. Blaming is the act of outsourcing the authorship of your life. It is handing the pen of your story to someone else and then being furious at the plot they're writing. They made me feel this way. Their action caused my failure. If only they were different, I would be happy. In that moment, you become a supporting character in your own drama, a leaf blaming the wind for where it lands. The immense, often frightening, power of personal responsibility is surrendered for the temporary comfort of innocence. But this comfort is a cage. It makes you perpetually at the mercy of others' actions, a hostage to their choices. Buddhism introduces the law of karma, not as cosmic punishment, but as the simplest principle of cause and effect. Every action of body, speech, and mind plants a seed. Every experience is a harvest. When we blame, we are staring at a harvest of thorns and shouting at the sky, ignoring the thistle seeds we ourselves planted, or chose to water, in the past. Karma is not fatalism. It is the ultimate empowerment. You are the primary gardener of your life's field. Others may throw seeds into your plot, but you decide which to water, which to weed, and what to plant next. Think of your life as a vast, intricate web, like a spider's creation. You occupy the central nexus. Each strand represents a relationship, a circumstance, a past action. Blaming is the act of focusing a blazing spotlight on one single strand, the one connected to the other you blame, and screaming that it is pulling you down. In doing so, you blind yourself to all the other strands you are holding, weaving, or could release. You have more connections, more leverage, more freedom to move within the web than you think. The blame fixation paralyzes you. We blame because it is easier than the arduous work of self-examination. It protects a fragile ego. Admitting, "My choices led me here," requires humility and courage. But it is the only path to true power. Let me tell you about David and his business partnership. The business failed. David's narrative was airtight. His partner, Liam, was impulsive, made a bad deal against David's advice, and sank the ship. David wore this story like armor for years. It explained his financial ruin, his depression, his stagnation. He was the righteous victim. At a reunion, he learned Liam, after the failure, had taken a brutal self-inventory, acknowledged his own arrogance, learned from it, and slowly, humbly, built a small but thriving new venture. David was stunned. He had used Liam as the villain in his stop-clock life, while Liam, by accepting his part in the failure, had kept his own clock ticking. David realized the true cause of his paralysis wasn't Liam's mistake, it was his own choice to build a shrine to that mistake and worship at it every day. He had been watering the seed of blame, and it had grown into a prison tree. The Buddhist practices to overcome this are mindfulness and forgiveness. Mindfulness helps you catch the blame story as it arises. There is the thought that this is all their fault. Seeing it as a thought loosens its grip. You can then ask the powerful question, what is my part in this? What was my action or inaction? What seed did I plant? This is not about self-flagellation. It is about reclaiming agency. Forgiveness is the final release. You forgive the other person not to exonerate them, but to cut the psychic cord that binds your happiness to their past action. You release them from your mental prison so you can walk free. And you forgive yourself, for your poor choices, for your blindness, for wasting years in blame. This self-forgiveness is the most critical step. It allows you to put down the heavy, bitter story and pick up the blank page of the present moment, ready to write a new chapter with the wisdom you've earned. When you stop blaming, you stop being a leaf in the wind. You remember you have roots and a trunk. You may not control the storm, but you can deepen your roots and strengthen your core. You become the author of your resilience. Your mental strength is no longer contingent on others behaving well, it is built on the unassailable foundation of your own responsible, compassionate, and proactive relationship with your life. Daydreaming of a castle in the clouds is a beautiful escape. Believing you live there is a dangerous delusion. Fantasizing is mental escapism. It's the mind's attempt to find pleasure in an unreal future to avoid the discomfort or boredom of the present. It's a sugar rush for the imagination, followed by a crash when reality reasserts itself. Visualization, in contrast, is mental architecture. It's the deliberate, grounded use of imagination to blueprint a future that is connected to present moment action. One weakens you by fostering disconnection and passivity, the other strengthens you by fostering connection and agency. Buddhism distinguishes this through the concepts of right intention and right action, grounded in mindfulness. Right intention is the wholesome motivation behind our goals, not just, I want to be rich, but, I want to cultivate abundance so I may help others and live free from fear. Visualization aligns with right intention. Fantasy is often rooted in craving, envy, or aversion. Right action is the physical, step-by-step movement toward that intention. Fantasy bypasses action, it's the attempt to get the reward without the work. Mindfulness is the anchor that keeps us honest about where we are, so our visions are built on the solid ground of reality, not the shifting sands of wishful thinking. Imagine your desired future is a distant, shining city. Fantasizing is like sitting in your current room, painting a breathtaking, detailed mural of that city on your wall, and then staring at it, hoping to be transported. Visualization is like studying a map of the terrain between you and the city, charting a route, packing your bag with supplies for the journey, and then taking the first actual step out your door. Both involve the mind's eye, but one is an endpoint, the other is a catalyst. We fantasize because it is effortless and gives an immediate, if false, sense of attainment. The hard work of visualization and action requires confronting our limitations, our fear of failure, and the mundane discipline of daily steps. Fantasy is the mental equivalent of eating junk food, visualization is like preparing a nutritious meal. Let's explore the story of Chloe, an aspiring novelist. She spent years fantasizing, the book jacket, the bestseller list, the talk shows. She'd imagine poignant scenes and witty dialogue in the shower, then feel a surge of accomplishment. But she rarely sat at her desk. The blank page was terrifying because it could never match the perfect movie in her mind. Her fantasy was a finished masterpiece, the reality was a messy first draft. She felt like a fraud, a writer who didn't write. Then, she attended a workshop where the instructor said, "Stop writing a novel. Write one true sentence. Then another." This was visualization in action. Instead of fantasizing about chapter 20, she began to visualize a daily routine, waking, making tea, writing for 1 hour. She visualized the feeling of her fingers on the keys, the sound of typing, the satisfaction of a single completed page. She anchored her vision in the present moment sensory experience of writing, not the distant glory of having written. The fantasy was a distant city, her new visualization was the path right outside her door. She started walking. The manuscript grew, not from a dream of grandeur, but from a visualized, lived commitment to the craft itself. To cultivate this shift, practice goal-anchored visualization. Don't just picture the trophy. Picture yourself doing the drills, feeling the sweat, overcoming the urge to quit. Connect your vision to a present moment action trigger. When I finish my coffee, present, I will sit and work on my proposal for 25 minutes, visualized action leading to future. This binds your dream to your reality. Mindfulness is crucial to catch the mind when it slips into idle fantasy. I'm daydreaming about fame again. Gently return to the question, what is the one small, concrete thing I can do right now that aligns with that valued future? This bridges the gap. By replacing fantasy with visualization, you move from being a passive spectator of a glorious mental movie to being the director, screenwriter, and lead actor in the real, gritty, beautiful film of your actual life. Your mental strength grows from the muscle of disciplined imagination, the kind that builds bridges to the future, not castles in the air. To withhold your authentic expression is to build a dam across the river of your own spirit. The water. Your ideas, feelings, creativity, truth, backs up, stagnates, and creates immense pressure. This pressure can manifest as anxiety, resentment, physical tension, or a vague sense of being unfulfilled. You walk through life with a muted voice, an edited version of yourself, believing it is safer. But safety purchased at the cost of authenticity is a life sentence to a small, dimly lit room within yourself. It weakens the mind because it creates a fundamental disconnect between your inner reality and your outer presentation, a schism that requires constant energy to maintain. Buddhism emphasizes right speech, samavaka, as a cornerstone of the path. It is not merely about what we say, but the intention and awareness behind it. Right speech is truthful, kind, timely, and beneficial. It arises from a mind that is present and compassionate. Not expressing yourself is often a violation of this principle toward yourself. You are not being truthful to your own experience. You are not being kind to your own need to be seen and heard. Authentic expression is an act of integrity, of aligning your inner and outer worlds. Think of your true self as a unique, intricate melody. Life is the symphony. Not expressing yourself is like having your instrument in hand but playing only the notes you think others want to hear, or worse, remaining silent. The symphony goes on, but it is missing your essential thread, your harmonic contribution. It feels incomplete, because it is. And you feel unseen, because you are hiding the instrument. Right speech is learning to play your melody with skill. Not blaring it harshly, but weaving it in with awareness, contributing to the whole without losing your distinct sound. We stay silent out of fear of judgment, rejection, conflict, or being too much. We confuse authenticity with aggression or neediness. But there is a vast, fertile middle ground between explosive outbursts and suffocating silence. It is the ground of clear, compassionate, courageous communication. Consider the story of Rohan, a mid-level manager in a corporate culture that valued aggressive confidence. Rohan was naturally thoughtful, deliberate, and collaborative. He'd stay quiet in meetings, watch flashier colleagues take credit for ideas he'd subtly seeded, and then fume in private. He felt weak, ineffective. He tried to mimic the dominant style but came off as inauthentic and strained. The pressure built until a key project was heading for disaster due to an overlooked risk he had seen but not voiced. This time, he prepared differently. Instead of mustering false bravado, he centered himself with a minute of mindful breathing before speaking. He framed his concern not as criticism, but as a shared desire for success. "I've been thinking about the timeline," he said, his voice calm. "I have a concern about X dependency. I may be missing something, but could we look at a contingency plan?" The room went quiet, then engaged. His authentic, thoughtful expression, rooted in care for the project, cut through the noise. He wasn't playing someone else's melody, he was finally playing his own, and it was precisely what the symphony needed. His influence, and his sense of personal power, grew from that day. The practice to cultivate this is mindful communication. Before speaking, pause. Check your intention. Is it to blame, to impress, to defend? Or is it to connect, to inform, to contribute? Then, feel the physical sensations of the emotion or idea wanting to emerge. Give it space. Speak from that felt sense, with kindness for yourself and the listener. Nonverbal expression is also part of this. Your body language, your art, your style, your actions, these are all expressions. Bringing mindful awareness to them allows you to express authenticity even in silence. By practicing right speech toward yourself and others, you dismantle the dam. The backed-up waters of your spirit begin to flow. This flow is vitality. It clears stagnation, connects you to others in truth, and builds a mental strength that comes from integrity. The unshakable knowledge that you are living, speaking, and being in alignment with who you truly are. You become a full participant in the symphony of your life. In the relentless pursuit of productivity, achievement, or even solitude, we can subtly demote relationships to the status of a luxury or a distraction. We tell ourselves we'll connect when things calm down. But life, in its Buddhist truth of impermanence, is a river that never calms down for long. The people in our lives are not static landmarks on the bank, they are fellow travelers in the same current. To neglect these connections is to choose to sail alone, believing self-reliance is strength. But humans are neurologically, emotionally, and spiritually wired for connection. Isolation is not independence, it is a slow starvation of the soul. A mind deprived of the mirroring, support, and joy of deep relationships becomes brittle, self-referential, and fragile. Buddhism places immense value on Sangha, the spiritual community. While often referring to monastic communities, its principle extends to our web of personal relationships. These connections are the field where we practice patience, compassion, forgiveness, and love, the very qualities that constitute mental strength. A relationship is not merely an emotional transaction, it is a gym for the heart-mind. To skip the workout is to let those muscles atrophy. Imagine your mind is a beautiful, complex tapestry. Each personal relationship is a unique, vibrant thread woven into it. Some threads are strong and central, family, partner, others are subtle highlights, a kind barista, a thoughtful colleague. Neglecting relationships is like ignoring fraying threads or refusing to weave new ones. Over time, the tapestry becomes thin, full of holes, losing its warmth, richness, and integrity. It may still hang on the wall, but it no longer holds heat or tells a complete story. Making time is the act of mindful weaving, strengthening the existing bonds and being open to new colors and textures. We neglect relationships because we believe time spent doing is more valuable than time spent being with. We overestimate our self-sufficiency. Or, we fear the vulnerability and inevitable complications that intimacy brings. But the Buddha's teachings on dukkha, suffering, remind us that life contains inevitable pain. To face that pain without a network of support is to face a hurricane in a paper boat. Let me tell you about Evelyn, a fiercely independent software engineer who prided herself on needing no one. She worked long hours, ate meals at her desk, and considered socializing a drain on her productivity. Her mantra was, "I'm my own best company." Over years, her world became perfectly efficient and profoundly empty. A severe health scare landed her in the hospital. As she lay there, staring at the sterile ceiling, she had a chilling realization: if she died, her code would be maintained by someone else within a week. Her apartment would be cleared out. There would be no one to truly mourn, no one whose life was fundamentally altered by her absence. She had built a fortress, but it was a tomb. Recovery was long. A neighbor, someone she'd barely acknowledged, brought her soup. An old college friend, hearing the news, called. These small threads of connection felt, in her vulnerability, like lifelines. She began, tentatively, to weave. She started having coffee with the neighbor. She called her friend back. It was awkward at first, like using atrophied muscles. But as she made time, her inner tapestry, thread by thread, began to regain its warmth and color. She discovered that interdependence is not weakness, it is the very fabric of a resilient, meaningful life. The practice is quality presence. It's not about quantity of time, but the quality of attention. When you are with someone, put away the phone. Listen with your whole being. See them. This is an application of mindfulness to relationship. Active appreciation is another. Regularly, consciously, acknowledge the value someone brings to your life. A simple, specific text, I was just thinking about how you made me laugh yesterday. Thank you. By prioritizing the sacred act of connection, you strengthen the relational threads of your mental tapestry. You create a net that can catch you when you fall. You build a reservoir of shared joy that multiplies happiness. Your mental strength is no longer the brittle strength of a lone tower, but the resilient, flexible strength of a redwood grove, individual trees, but interconnected at the roots, holding each other up through all storms. And so, we have walked through 10 shadows that dim our inner light, and 10 lamps from the ancient storehouse of Buddhism to dispel them. We have seen how the mind, left untrained, habitually clings, blames, complains, and hides, mistaking these patterns for protection when they are, in truth, the bars of its own cage. The path to mental strength is not a path of adding more armor, more control, more forceful will. It is a path of understanding and release. It is the path of mindfulness. Learning to be the sky that holds the weather of emotion, not the storm itself. It is the path of impermanence, learning to dance with change rather than rage against it. It is the path of right action, planting seeds in the garden of your life with clear intention, then tending them without clinging to the harvest. It is the path of compassion, starting with yourself and flowing outward to all beings, for in their joy and sorrow, we see our own. This journey is not linear. You will find yourself clutching the hot coal of complaint again. You will lose hours in the museum of the past. You will hand the mirror of your worth to a stranger. This is not failure. This is the practice. Each time you notice, each time you gently guide yourself back, to the breath, to the present, to kindness, you are weaving a stronger thread into the tapestry of your mind. You are, in that moment, a practitioner of the most profound psychology ever developed. The one that leads to the end of unnecessary suffering. Welcome this understanding not as a new burden of shoulds, but as a map you have always carried, now finally illuminated. Let it guide you not to a distant perfection, but to a profound peace with the beautiful, messy, impermanent, and deeply interconnected reality of this very life. Thank you for walking this path with Monk's Temple today. May the clarity of your own awareness be your guide. May your heart be gentle with itself. And may you move through the world with the quiet, unshakable strength that comes from knowing your true nature, vast, clear, and fundamentally free.